Mhm. Okay, yeah, I make sure that I record. This is important. Okay. Hello, everybody, once again. Good afternoon. So, welcome to our second webinar. And today we have not the newest topic, but quite important. And I suppose today I'll try to share new ideas, fresh ideas. We will try to summarize what we already know and use. And today I want this webinar to be also a place where we can share our experience in the end. Yeah, so this is always useful. Okay, perfect. Okay, so my name is Ksusha. I'm a teacher of Green Forest Odessa, and today we talk about how to develop reading skills of our students. And the first thing that I'd like to start with, it's going to be a phrase, a quote, said by Jeremy Harmer that reading is not a passive skill, but an incredibly active occupation. And my main aim today is to prove that reading is not boring. Reading is not something that our students should be afraid of or hate. And and it requires much effort and a lot of skills, both teachers and students. And today in our agenda, we've got a couple of objectives that I'd like to discuss and clarify. So first of all, we will understand and remember why should students read, not only at home, but in the actual classroom. And we're gonna base our theory today on main principles of reading. Of course, we're gonna talk about what our students should read. Should these be authentic materials or adapted ones? And of course, the main thing, how we can make our reading more interesting and involving. This is lesson planning. So we're going to talk about aims and stages of reading block of our lessons. Do we pre-teach anything? Why do we do this if we pre-teach? And of course, I'm going to share some reading sources and tasks that can spice up reading a little bit. And in the end, you're going to be free to ask me any questions. For now, I will ask you to mute your microphones so I feel comfortable speaking, you feel comfortable listening to me. But if I ask you any questions, feel free not only to type in our chat, but also to answer out loud. So let us start. The first question that I've asked myself, and we have to ask ourselves all the time, why should students read? Why can't we give them reading at home, as home reading, and that's it. So basically, first of all, lots of them want and need to read for personal purposes, so they need practice. And this is our teachers' responsibility to teach them how to read correctly, how to see and choose the necessary information that they need, and how not to panic if they don't understand every single word and they don't understand everything. Also, another thing that reading gives us, useful thing that reading gives us, it's language acquisition. By reading, students see and might remember, perfect option, some good models of English, and further they can apply them in their in their writing performance. So reading is a good source of good models. That's why we have to encourage them to read. Okay. Also, reading helps us, teachers, to make our students study and notice and see vocabulary, grammar, punctuation, which we don't really teach that much, and sentence construction. So we can use reading for presenting these pieces of functional language or vocabulary items, which gives our students a context and makes it easier for them to understand and get the meaning of the language. And today I also want to base this webinar on main principles of reading, since this is something that we have we have to remember all the time and have it in our head while preparing for our lesson. So first of all, reading is not a passive skill, and as I told you, while reading, our students use a lot of their skills and knowledge. to process, to understand, to analyze, to react to the texts that we give them. Also, students need to be engaged while reading, so it doesn't become a boring activity, and they feel motivated enough to continue reading at home. And this is our responsibility, by the way, to make it interesting. How and using which methods and strategies, we're going to talk a little bit later. Also, students should be encouraged to respond to both content and vocabulary. And you might have a question like, how can we encourage them to respond? Well, by creating relevant, interesting, and up to their level tasks, which are both easy to understand and complete, and educative at the same time. And as we are all good teachers, we have to exploit reading texts to the full. So one text can be used for a variety of aims, for both making our students notice the language and to develop their reading skill. So now I'd like to move to the question, what should students read? Since we use our course book Notes by Green Forest, it's a little bit easier for us because we don't have to choose the material for every lesson. However, we all know that groups might be different, and of course, sometimes we want to give them home reading, or we want to spice up our lesson somehow, so we add additional texts, or we need to create a great, let's say, grammar lesson, so we also can use reading as like the tool to give the context for our students. So in this case, you might face a trouble. Should I choose an authentic material, or should I stick to adapted texts? Of course, everything depends on the group, on the level. However, today I'd like to pay attention to a couple of advantages of both authentic materials and adapted texts, and give this choice to you, so you can evaluate your students, yeah, and choose the best one. Of course, authentic materials provide our students with great number of language items like vocabulary, functional language, slang expressions, and they, while reading, they acquire this is authentic language that they might hear talking to native speakers. And of course, authentic materials provide them with great models to perform in written or orally further. However, authentic materials might have another effect. Yeah, it might make our students less motivated since they don't understand everything, or sometimes they might not understand at all the text at all. That's why we have to be really careful using authentic materials, not to discourage our students and not to start hating, not to make them start hating reading. Or we can use adapted texts, which we always use, I suppose we usually use. And of course, adapted texts, they provide greater text coherence, so students are able of understanding. Yeah, they read, they can react to the text they read. And of course, it decreases, adapted text decreases the language load of students, and as a result, motivates them to continue reading. And of course, it's even at home, they might feel motivated enough to read and to discover, yeah, different books, even maybe not adapted ones. However, the number of language items might be a little bit lower than if we talk about authentic materials. Well, if you've already decided to choose an authentic one, you might adapt it, which is of course great option how to make it less stressful for our students. And adaptation might be might have different options. You might simplify the text, or you might elaborate it. Well, actually, talking about adapting texts is easier for us and for our students if we simplify the text. So basically, we just we linguistically simplify it by substituting some vocabulary to an easier option, yeah, or we shorten sentences. We might reduce the complexity of sentences. However, and this is easier for us. However, well, the text will be adapted, so it's not that authentic, yeah. Another way of adapting might be elaborating text, which is more difficult for both students and teachers. Well, the aim of this is to clarify and explain some information. So maybe we don't substitute vocabulary and you don't change difficult words for easier ones. You just make the text more coherent, and of course the ambiguity is limited in this case in elaborated texts. You might add some extra clauses defining the difficult word that was previously used in the sentence. Yeah, you might change it a little bit, but in general, it's quite a difficult task for teachers to elaborate these texts up to the level, however, not to make it overcomplicated. Well, my CELTA tutor told me once that, Ksusha, it's not about the text that you've chosen, yeah, for your students, authentic or adapted, it's about the task that you've created, so your students can actually complete it. No matter which text you've chosen for your lesson, tasks should be relevant and tasks should be up to the level of your group. That's why choosing both adapted or authentic ones, you can make them quite interesting, yeah, and not that difficult for your students. And now we moved to the actual question, yeah, how to make our reading block of the lesson more interesting, less boring, and useful for our students. And of course, first of all, we have to set aims for ourselves. And if we talk about reading, we might have two aims. The first one, we use the text to get functional language and vocabulary. So students use it for the context and to notice the necessary target language for us. Or we might use it to actually develop the reading skill of our students. Talking about the first option, I usually imagine and explain it as a shortcut because the lesson staging will be a little bit different and a little bit shortened when we plan it. Of course, we use the usual strategy. We start with a lead-in, or we make a logical bridge, depending on which stage or which part of the lesson you have the reading block. Yep, and then we move to orientation. I will explain the difference between lead-in and orientation a little bit later. And then we ask our students to read the text and get the general idea of this text, so understand it in general, and this is called reading for gist. And after that, we can slowly move to language noticing. So basically, we ask our students to read this text once again and categorize phrases that are in bold or complete these phrases with missing words, and so on and so forth. So this is a shortened image of your lesson plan if we use reading as a context. Yeah, you read the reading text as a context. However, if we want to develop the actual reading skill of our students, we need to expand it a little bit. We also start with the lead-in and orientation, and here I want to clarify what's the difference. Usually the lead-in, this is a question or a picture that moves our students to the topic that they're going to read about and raises their interest. So after answering this text or looking at this picture, they are willing to read and they're willing to check something or willing to get to know something new, yet to learn something new. However, orientation might be just a picture that quickly and shortly explains to our student what they're going to read about or whose opinion they're going to read. For example, my students, they are used to this, yeah, to orientation parts of our lesson. So before every reading, I have a picture showing, for example, two people talking. And I say, okay, here there are two people, they are discussing what you've just discussed with your partners. Read to the text and check what they think of this. So basically, this is my short orientation. Now they know, I'm reading about two different people talking on, discussing this topic. Then we need to move to general understanding of the text, and we call it reading for gist. And after that, since we develop the reading skills and skills of analyzing the text, we need to move to reading for details, where they need to find some details of the text, some specific information, which tasks you can use for this, we're going to discuss a little bit later. And after that, since they've read, analyzed, looked through all items of vocabulary that might be new for them, they need to react to this question, and this is called a personal response. This stage is necessary in reading block of our lesson because this teaches our students to analyze the text, to react, yeah, to apply new information to their everyday conversations while they're discussing this or comparing their ideas with their partners. Okay. Well, for different aims of reading, we can and we need to use different reading strategies. And here I want to talk about how our students process the text, how they perceive it. In this case, we talk about two different strategies. It's skimming and scanning. Now I will ask you guys to unmute your microphones and give me, I'm sure that somebody knows, what's the difference? Does anybody know the difference between skimming and scanning, and what stages of the lesson we use these strategies for? Sorry. You can unmute your microphones if anybody knows.
I guess skimming, it's like getting from the top, like the main information from each paragraph.
And what about scanning?
This is like more general, like when you look for dates, numbers, names, something like that.
Yeah, I suppose Lisa is speaking. You're absolutely right. Thank you so much. You can mute yourself for now. Basically, yeah, you are right. So skimming, this is understanding the general idea of the text, and we can, like usually we find the main idea of each paragraph. It can take us up to 5 minutes, of course, depending on the length and difficulty of your text and the level of students, right? Some text can be over long, too long for our students. Yeah, however, yes, you're absolutely right. Skimming, it's finding the main idea of each paragraph, for example. However, scanning, it's more about finding specific information like synonyms, antonyms, dates, numbers, and it might take our students up to 10 minutes, more or less, depending on the text that they read. Yep. And here, while talking about aims and lesson planning, yeah, I haven't mentioned any examples of GIST activities or detailed activities. So now I want to share how to understand if this activity that you have in the book, that you see in the book, is a GIST one or a detailed one. So usually GIST activities, this is something like, guess what the article is about, and this might be one question that requires understanding the whole idea of the main idea of the text without digging deep into detail. So for example, make a list of 5 things they may go wrong on a holiday. After this, students are supposed to read the text and check their guesses, yeah, if they actually guessed or not. This is both a guessing task and a GIST task. So they just analyze the text in general. Or it might look like what is the main idea of the text, or how do you understand the title of the text? Yep. So this is, or it might also look like this screenshot where you've got just 2 general questions. You make your students read them before they start reading. While they're reading, they process this information, and in the end of the first reading, you might ask them to discuss it with their partners, what they think of this. Also, GIST activity might be like give names to every paragraph of the article, yeah, and the text is divided into 4 or more 4 or more paragraphs, and it looks like this, yeah. Read the article about family values and match the headings with the paragraph. So this is also taken from upper intermediate lesson about modern families, how the values have changed. Yeah, or it can also be just what do people think in the article about. So also understanding the general idea of the text. However, looking at detailed activities, they're usually about answering questions, true false activities, or even find words or phrases in the article that match the meaning. This was all taken from our notes by Green Forest, as you see. So this usually detailed task should be always after the GIST task, and it requires a little bit more time than the GIST one. Okay, so now I feel like I've missed one necessary stage in lesson planning, like pre-teaching, but that was made on purpose since I wanted us to pay more attention to this one. First of all, we might have a question, why do we have to pre-teach, since we want our students to to analyze the test on their own, to experience reading something that they've never seen before. However, there is even a psychological reason why we need to do this. Basically, first of all, we pre-teach because we want to give our students a helping hand. Even psychologically, they understand, if the text is difficult, I will know 5 words, and this will at least help me a little bit. But this is not the reason why we should do this. The actual one, it's when our students come to completing tasks, usually detailed ones, there might be a couple of new words or expressions that they don't know. And this is called a blocking vocabulary, which we need to pre-teach to help our students to understand the task and to complete it correctly. If they don't know this word or phrase, they will not succeed. And it's not because they didn't understand the text, but because they don't know the word used in the actual task. So we need to pre-teach blocking vocabulary from detailed tasks. Or you might also expand your vocabulary, not your students' vocabulary, and pre-teach some interesting examples of the language just to broaden their outlook. Can be slang expressions, anything that is connected to structure of the sentence, maybe some linking words that they've never seen before, to broaden the outlook of your students. And this is, I just want to help a little bit with how to choose and how to choose the blocking vocabulary. I've taken a detailed task from intermediate level. The text was about Tinder dates. And while completing this task, they might have troubles with a couple of expressions. The first one is to set up. They might know it, but in a different context, because on pre-intermediate level, we'll learn it as a phrasal verb, but with a different meaning. Also, they might not know the meaning of the adjective decent, and in the text, this word wasn't used. That's why they might have troubles understanding, even if they got the idea of the text. And in number 6, I've chosen the freezer. They might confuse it with the refrigerator or fridge. And this is just good to know that freezer and fridge, these are different things. So basically, if you have up to 5, even 7 words of pre-teaching, well, 7, that would be too many, up to 5 words, that's okay. If you have more than 7 or 10 words to pre-teach, probably this is the text not relevant to the level of your students, or it's overcomplicated and you have to adapt the task. So maybe the text is difficult, but the task might be easy. That's why pay attention, what is difficult, the task or the actual text. Okay, now I want to share a couple of ideas how to pre-teach, because this might be also a thing that we always think about to make it different, to vary our pre-teaching. So you can use just pictures on PPT if this is something that it's easy to show, but try not to show and tell, try to elicit. Because somebody might know it and you don't have to teach everything, just elicit from your groups. Also, you can tell a story. Usually what I do when I pre-teach the word embarrassed to my pre-intermediate students, I tell a story when I felt like this. By the end of the story, they understand the meaning of this word, but they don't know the actual word to say. That's how I pre-teach it, and then I write this word on the whiteboard, and they know both meaning and the word. It takes me up to 2 minutes because the story is really short. Also, you can mime if we talk about adjectives, or even if you talk about appearance, you can point on your body. You can elicit the necessary words, or you can ask for synonyms and antonyms. In the list of those synonyms and antonyms, there might be a word that you actually need for the text. Okay, and now I'd like to share a couple of sources and tasks that might spice up your reading, since we understood that teachers, we have to use our text for full. However, sometimes texts are too difficult or too long, and we need to adapt them somehow. We can use text as it is if they are up to level, if they're okay to use. However, if the text is too long or too difficult, or the students are not motivated enough to read it because they don't know anything about this topic, or just this type of group that you have there, they don't like reading. It happens. Maybe people don't like reading in their ordinary life. You can use a jigsaw reading task. Well, what it is, I'm going to show it. I've taken this from upper intermediate notes by Green Forest. Well, the text was about generations, and my group, and usually people don't know much about generations, differences, and in general, like what it is about. And they feel not that motivated to discuss things since they have nothing to say. That's why I usually divide my students, put my students in pairs or groups, depending on how many students I've got, and I nominate who is A, B, and C student. After that, every student finds the necessary text for them to read according to the letter they've got, and they need to read this text, the only one that they have. First of all, it makes easier and faster for them to read, since they don't have to read a long one. Secondly, before they start reading, I always tell them, hey guys, while reading, try to remember as many details as possible. If the text is too difficult, I ask them to take notes so they feel more confident. After that, after they've read and taken notes if it's necessary, I ask them to retell the text using their notes or their memory. So this activity makes them first more motivated to read and understand, because they need to remember a lot. Yes. Secondly, it also involves communicative tasks, so they need to retell, and it's really student-centered. The teacher does nothing except monitoring, yeah, and just setting the task and giving instructions, which is also good. It's really student-centered. Another thing that we might spice up our activity, our reading with, is home reading. I don't know if many of you use it, but it's a great idea if you want to expand the vocabulary of your students, or you just want to give them an extra task when you feel that the group is strong enough and likes reading. So you can use articles. Why I've chosen articles? Because reading a whole book might be too stressful for your students, because usually if they can't continue if they haven't read the first chapter. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. But articles are easy to read. They're shorter than the whole book. Then you can choose different topics, so everybody can find the topic that they're really interested in. And usually articles can be found on different international sources, which is and we make, in this way, we make our students meet and see authentic materials, but we don't ask them for too much. You know, they just read it for themselves. And next time, next lesson, as a warm-up, you can use just quickly discuss or take a look at a couple of great expressions that were used in that text. Why not? I will share great resources where you can find articles for different levels and according to different topics for your students. Another way how you can make your reading or lessons more interesting with the help of reading, it's poetry. To tell you the truth, I don't know that many students who use it, but I came up with some great ideas how you can do this, how you can apply it to your lesson without that much stress for you and for your students. First of all, poetry can be used, a poem can be used as a warm-up. For example, at the previous lesson, your students have learned something like giving opinion or talking about art. Next time you start your lesson with a poem, a short poem, which one I'm going to show you. And you ask them to discuss, to read it and to discuss if they agree, disagree, what they think of this, how is it connected to our previous topic, using vocabulary and functional language from the previous lesson. You can also use poems as a lead-in or lead-in to personal response, kind of to raise the interest and to give a topic to discuss for your students. Sometimes productions can be less successful when they can't relate or they have nothing to say. That's why a poem, a great one. I mean, the topic is good, yeah, and you've chosen, it's relevant to the lesson, can encourage your students and motivate your students to discuss it more. And as an example of poems, I want to pay your attention to limericks. I don't know if you ever used it, but it's a great way, short and easy, how you can spice up your lessons using reading. So basically, limericks, these are short poems. They have a fixed structure. Everything depends on the number of syllables each line has and the rhyme, how it is rhymed. So basically, there are 5 lines, and every line has a fixed number of syllables. And you see that the rhyme that they use, it's A-A-B-B-A. Well, this one is about friendship. I recommend you using it as lead in, or I don't know, lead into production. If we talk about relationship, friendship, or even being generous. Yeah, here, are you willing to share when there isn't much there? You can also use it for lessons where you talk about personal features of people, something like that. And I know that's really difficult to find them. Yeah, you're not gonna create them on your own. That's why here I share two links with you. The first one is where you can find them, and there are lots of them. You can choose any topic you like. The second one, if you want your students to make the same, if they're interested in writing same thing, the second website gives you a source where you can rhyme words. So you don't have to ask your students to be poets yet to rhyme everything on their own. You can give them like the source where they can do this automatically. So basically, ladies, that's it. And now, if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask me. And I thank you for your attention, because for me, it was really comfortable to share with you. If you have any questions, you're free to ask me now, or if you have something to share, that would be great. But please unmute yourselves. Here I've got in chat, oh my, there are a lot. Okay, can we use poems and limericks for production tasks? Yes, that's what I said. We definitely can, depending on how you apply it. So you can use it even, you can ask your students to write limericks. You give them an example, you give them how they should be written, and you even give them a website where they can find rhymes to any words they've chosen. Which is fun. You can also use it as for your special course. Why not? Or just as production if you have just this creative lesson. Maybe there are any other questions that you'd like to ask me, or you can share something. Yes, I can share the link with limericks, of course, and I will also send the presentation, the full one, with all the sources where you can find. The last slide I have all full of links where you can find articles, online newspapers, limericks, short stories, fairy tales, which students really love reading, the adult ones. Yeah. So yeah, okay, great. So I will definitely send you sources where you can find everything, and I'm sending the link now. So if you want to use it as soon as possible, that would be great. I'll be really happy that you use this. Okay, I feel like there are no other questions. So thank you guys for being with me today, for being active. You are welcome, and have great lessons, improve your students' reading skills, and I will share everything as soon as possible. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye. See you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Bye.